You're just in time for a great show because we have our guest Ed Kleese returning with his amazing football memory to tell us about the top 10 greatest football playoff moments in National Football League history. Ed's up in just a moment to share with us some very memorable moments indeed. Coming up right after this.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome once again to another edition of talking to a guest that has some really cool stuff to share with us on football history. We had him on just a short time ago, Ed Kleese, who is a big Washington fan, big football fan. Ed, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hi, Darren. Great to be back. I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, I am excited too, because Ed, after we got done talking about the Redskins podcast that we did a few weeks ago, you came up with some brilliant ideas on some things you wanted to talk about. And, I know I'd love to hear what you have to say, and so would the audience here. And I guess what the first topic we're going to talk about is some of the postseason play. And maybe you can explain that a little bit and get into what you got.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to do the top 10 forgotten playoff moments of all time. Now, that, of course, is very subjective, but my parameters were this. Number one, no Super Bowls, because that's like a whole different topic. So this is playoffs, not Super Bowls. We could do a whole different list on forgotten Super Bowl moments. Number two, it had to be what I perceived as having a real impact on that season's postseason, meaning it may have had a trickle effect all the way to the Super Bowl. And then number three, and this is where it gets pretty subjective, I had to decide that, I really think that the general football fan has sort of forgotten about this. So you're not going to hear the Immaculate Reception or the Sea of Hands or the Tuck Rule or, anything like that has a name to it that everybody remembers. And for example, there was the 98 when the Gary Anderson missed the field goal against the Falcons to go.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just a little too prominent and people remembered it, so it's not on the list. So I tried to go a little deeper to find the ones that people may have legitimately forgotten about.
Okay, and this is during the Super Bowl era, so post AFL NFL merger.
Super Bowl era, yes.
Okay,
correct.
So we have basically 50 some odd years that
correct.
We're talking
yes.
about.
And I'm sure people will get this top 10 list and then scream because there's 25 that could have been on here and aren't.
Well, hey, I love the criteria. I love getting rid of all the mainstream plays that we all think about, like you said, Sea of Hands, Immaculate Reception, and the Tuck Rule, and things like that, and getting to some of these things that maybe, they're in the back of our memory banks, but we're like, oh, we'll have those aha moments. I'm sure you'll get me on a couple of those today. So, so please share.
Yeah, sure. Let's do three very quick honorable mentions that didn't make my list, but I had a hard time cutting. So I had the 2010 Jets as a forgotten playoff team. They beat the Colts and then the Patriots both on the road, knocked them off. Now, it had a residual effect for your guys because that's who the Steelers wound up playing in the AFC Championship game. Jets wound up giving them a pretty good game too. But I thought the 2010 Jets are a team that people really don't remember or talk about, and helped the Steelers in a lot of ways get to the Super Bowl that year, and they won it, of course. 1990, that Giants 49ers NFC Championship game. I think a lot of people remember it, but I'm not sure people remember the Roger Craig fumble. The 49ers had a 1-point lead late in the game. He fumbles. Giants recover, kick a field goal, their fifth field goal of the game, no touchdowns. They win 15-13. And then I think John Elway's forgotten playoff comeback was against the Oilers in 92. I think we have a lot of John Elway memories out there, but I don't know if that one gets talked about. And in some ways, that was one of the most dramatic. So those didn't quite make the list, but I'm ready to go with number 10 if you're ready.
Yeah, well, first of all, your honorable mentions are tremendous plays. And if they didn't make the list, you got me really pumped up here to hear what the top 10 are.
So here we go. Number 10, I've got the 1995 divisional playoffs, the Colts at the Chiefs in Arrowhead. The Chiefs were the number one seed that year. The Colts were barely made the playoffs, a very kind of a nondescript team, and the Chiefs were huge favorites. It was 11 degrees that day in Kansas City, so a real frigid day. One of those games that kind of devolved into a real defensive battle. The Colts wind up winning the game 10-7. They go to Pittsburgh again the
Mhm.
next week, almost win that game on the missed Hail Mary at the end. The Steelers wind up going to the Super Bowl. Had the Chiefs won that game, the AFC Championship game would have been in Arrowhead that year for the Steelers instead of at Three Rivers. But the interesting notes on that is the Colts won the game 10-7. The Chiefs were 0 for 3 on field goals in that game. Lynn Elliott, he missed them from 35, 39, and then with about 40 seconds left to tie it, he missed it from 42. And the
Mhm.
play right before that, I think it was Lake Dawson, had one right in his hands in the end zone. It would have been a tough catch, but it was catchable. I believe Steve Bono was the quarterback for the Chiefs that day. So the Chiefs had all these missed opportunities and those 3 missed field goals from all makeable range in the freezing weather. Is something that I don't think people quite remember, but was a pretty shocking result at the time and had a big effect on the playoffs that year.
Yeah, wow, I do remember that game, especially when you talked about Steve Bono, because Steve Bono was the Steelers' replacement year quarterback when
Oh, that yeah. So
so that's what he
wow.
actually was a replacement player. And I think that was the game, when the Chiefs lost that, I think they commenced that trade to get Montana that for the following season. I believe he was 92. He came from the 49ers to the Chiefs.
Yes, and that was this game was 95.
Oh,
The
95. Okay,
the
okay.
Colts game. Yeah, the Colts game
Okay,
was
so this is
95.
post Joe
This is
Montana.
post. This is
Okay, I'm
this
sorry.
was Schottenheimer. They had a lot of playoff heartbreak, just like he had in Cleveland. But that I think, if you ask Chiefs fans, I think they'll remember. I don't know if the NFL at large does, but that was a real stinger because the Chiefs were definitely the better team and just weren't that day.
Okay, now I got you. When you're talking the Hail
Yep.
Mary against the Steelers, it was Jim Harbaugh throwing
Yes.
the
Yes.
Hail Mary, who's now coaching
Yes.
the Chargers. So
Correct. Yep. All right, number 9. You ready?
yeah.
Go back a little bit farther. We'll go back to the 1987 divisional playoffs. That was Anthony Carter for the Vikings going bananas in San Francisco at Candlestick, and another huge upset. The Vikings knock off the 49ers 36-24. Anthony Carter amazingly didn't score a touchdown in that game, but he had 10 catches for 227 yards. So,
God.
27 yard
Mhm.
per catch average. And these were like some major over the shoulder, down the field, just huge, huge plays. It was a rough day for Montana, one of the only bad playoff games he ever had. He threw a pick 6 early, and Anthony Carter was unstoppable. The 49ers were probably the best team in the entire NFL in 87. And my Redskins wound up benefiting from that game because we were after Minnesota won the game, we hosted the Vikings in the NFC Championship game as opposed to having to go to Candlestick, which could have been a different story.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a good one.
So
But man, how do you do that? How do you have 200 yards receiving and don't
yeah,
score? That's
yeah,
that's
I don't know.
crazy.
I was a little because I remembered it pretty well, and when I went back and checked the box score to make sure I was remembering it correctly, I was surprised to see that he didn't score a touchdown. But I have a very vivid memory as a kid watching that game and having a vested interest because my team was still involved too, and just being in awe of Carter that game. That was one of the first individual performances I can really recall being kind of like just very surprised and amazed by in my fandom history.
Yeah, I'm picturing him getting like knocked out of bounds at the one a bunch of times or something,
Yeah,
you know?
it was awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of people. I think Bill Walsh called it the most painful football memory of his life, or the hardest
Hmm.
loss of his career, something along those lines. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think they were considered the best team in the league that year.
yeah, wow, that's amazing. Great,
Yep.
great call in the number
All
9
right.
too.
Yep. All right. Here's number 8. This is a little biased, and it's a little bit of a combo. So everybody remembers the 1985 Bears, of course. I would think maybe the most iconic team in the history of the league in the Super Bowl era. If maybe not, I don't know if we can debate the best, but certainly the most memorable and definitely very near the top of all-time defenses for sure. But I don't know if people realize, the 80, you have this dominant 85 team. So what happened to them in 86 and 87? Well, Joe Gibbs happened to them in 86 and 87. So my number 8 forgotten memory is that the Redskins went into Chicago in back-to-back years following the Bears Super Bowl and beat the Bears at Soldier Field in the divisional playoffs 2 years in a row. In 86, it was some good fortune for the Redskins because McMahon was out, Doug Flutie started. They actually won the game fairly easily. And then in 87, it was bitter cold. Darrell Green takes the punt back for a touchdown after they fell behind early. Washington kind of holds on to win that one. And Walter Payton's final game, the pretty iconic NFL film shot of him with his hands on his helmet on the sidelines. But the Redskins sort of ended a dynasty there because the Bears were home field advantage in the playoffs, 85, 86, and 87. But in 86 and 87, they ran into the Joe Gibbs machine.
Wow. Great memory there.
There you go.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they did it 2 years in a row. I remember
2 years in a row. Yep.
Wow.
2 years in a row.
Okay.
Number seven. I have, well, we don't have to go back too far on this one. I've got the Cardinals-Packers game from the 2015 season. And I don't know if people remember how incredible of an ending that was. The Cardinals had the 7-point lead, literally last play of the game. Rodgers, Hail Mary, final play of the game, complete, touchdown. They decide to kick the extra point, go to overtime. And then in overtime, we have the Larry Fitzgerald 75-yard catch and run down to the 5. He scores a touchdown on the next play. So in this one of the greatest playoff endings in NFL history, without a doubt. And the entire game was pretty good, back and forth. It was a well-played game. And that's one that I just don't think anybody really remembers much, but an incredible game with an incredible ending.
Okay, that's a great one. And Fitzgerald's always a gamer at the end of those games or in overtime, isn't he? He's always
he cut. And the great thing is it was a 75-yard pass, excuse me, but it was really about a 4-yard pass, and Fitzgerald just did the rest, kind of thing. So those are always really exciting, like that little slant, little cross, and he kind of almost took it to the house. And that was cool. Yeah, that was cool. That was one of those get up out of your chair moments where so much was happening in such a small amount of time there, that one stuck with me for sure.
I always think of Fitzgerald doing that with his yak. He's almost like a long-legged, giddy up. He gets going so quick.
Amazing player. All right, we go to number 6. This is kind of painful, even though it doesn't involve my team. It does involve a team I loathe, and that is the New York Giants. I can't stand the Giants for a lot of obvious reasons, probably. Also, my brother-in-law is a huge Giants fan. I've got other friends that are Giants fans. And so the 2011 NFC Championship game, the Kyle Williams game, who I'm not a 49ers fan, and I'll never forgive him because this is ridiculous, right? You have 2 fumbled punts in the final stages of a championship game that cost your team 10 points and essentially cost your team the game. Now, a lot of times I think people say so-and-so's mistake, lost the game for his team. And, if you look back at it, it's really a series of things that happened, and it's kind of unfair that it gets pinned on one player or one thing. This time, I think it's actually kind of accurate because the 49ers have a 14-10 lead midway through the fourth quarter. They force a punt, right? He muffs it. The Giants recover. The Giants score a touchdown. They take the lead. The 49ers do come back and tie the game. Game goes to overtime. 49ers get a stop on the first possession of overtime, force the Giants to punt, and Kyle Williams fumbles the punt. Both were recovered by Devin Thomas of the Giants. This time the Giants are already in field goal range. It's been 2 possessions in the game, so we can just kick the field goal. It's over. And the Giants go on to the Super Bowl, handed to them on a platter by poor Kyle Williams, who was only playing in that game because Ted Ginn was injured. So I felt terrible for him, but I actually felt worse for me having to listen to my brother-in-law celebrate that evening. It was painful. The 2007 Giants bothered me, but not as much as the 2011 ones because that one shouldn't have happened. So Kyle Williams, we have beef. There you go. On to number 5. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Number 5, we have another gaffe. We have the Packers Eagles, another NFC East team from 2003. This is the game. This was a well played game, back and forth. Also goes to overtime. There are a lot of Brett Favre memorable mistakes from Brett Favre over the years. Some interceptions, of course. I didn't put the 2009 NFC Championship game against the Saints interception on here because I think everybody remembers that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this one in 2003 may have been the single worst pass I've ever seen in NFL history, especially given the moment. So it's overtime. Again, the Eagles forced the Packers to punt on the first possession of overtime. Packers get the ball back. It is 1st and 10 at the 30. And on first down, I don't know what he's doing. He literally drops back. He's under a little bit of pressure, and he throws a jump ball to only Eagles. There's 2 defensive backs there. It is like a punt, essentially. I can't remember. It may have been Brian Dawkins. I'm not sure exactly who intercepted it, but he could have called a fair catch. It was that bad, and he returns it down to like the Packers 30, so it's essentially game over. Field goal, Eagles win. It's for a Hall of Fame quarterback and an elite quarterback like Favre to make that level of a mistake in a playoff game, again on first down. That was just baffling. And I'm not sure people really remember that amongst all of his other accolades, both good and bad.
Yeah, the coming out of retirement a bunch of times and yeah, but yeah, had some great plays, but he was a gunslinger, so he took the chances and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So
Yeah,
but
and
that one
it
does
would
sounds like more of a lob play though, not a threading the
well,
needle
it
play.
just I watched it a couple times going back, and I just maybe there's some sort of explanation for it. He thought someone's going to zig when they zagged or something, but it's hard to wrap your head around it when you. I'd encourage everybody to go check it out on YouTube because it's like I have no idea what's happening there. If it's 4th and 10, sure, but on 1st and 10, it makes 0 sense, and it very well cost them a playoff game, and those are pretty valuable.
Yeah,
You ready to go back a little farther?
sure, yeah.
All right, so
It's,
number
no,
4. We're going to go back to 1979. And I am really sure that people don't remember this one. This would have been I believe, the divisional round in Dallas, the Rams and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are huge, huge favorites in 1979. I think it was an 8 or 10-point favorite in that game. And they have the Rams are kind of hanging around. The Cowboys can't quite put them away. And then with about 2.5 minutes left, Vince Ferragamo heaves one deep, 50-yard touchdown. Rams take the lead. The Cowboys are unable to mount a comeback, even with Staubach there at the end, and we have this huge upset. And it really because of course the Super Bowl that year winds up being Rams and Steelers, the 4th of the Steelers 4 Super Bowls. But very likely Tampa Bay was the other team that made the NFC Championship game that year, so they would have played at Dallas had Dallas beaten the Rams. So likely Dallas, it likely would have been round 3 in the Super Bowl of Cowboys Steelers at the time.
hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that could have been. And that Rams team was kind of a surprise that year, especially with Ferragamo, because that was what Pat Hayden, I think, got hurt or something, and Ferragamo comes out of nowhere. I think he was a Canadian football player, I think.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember exactly what his origin story was. But yeah,
Yeah.
certainly not on the level of the other quarterbacks at the time that were playing in Super Bowls.
Right. Yeah, but that was a big upset against the Cowboys. I remember
Yes,
that.
and it's a little bit of a gem. If you go, it's on YouTube. I'd encourage a lot of people to go find it because Vin Scully calls the game too, which
Oh
is
yeah.
which is kind of cool. So he was on the call, but I think with Dick Vermeil, who had recently retired. All right. So we're gonna go on to number 3, and we're gonna stay in the same year. And I know you know this one.
Okay.
And I was very hesitant on this one because I think this one is pretty well known, but I went ahead and went with it anyway. This would be the AFC Championship game from '79, Houston against Pittsburgh, and the really infamous Pastorini pass to Mike Renfro, which was a touchdown called incomplete on the field, and then the Steelers wind up going on to win the game. Now, in the defense of the Steelers, the score is 17-10 at the time, and it's the 3rd quarter. So it's not like if they complete the touchdown that it's a for sure win for the Oilers. Far from it. However, that sort of ended their real chance. They really needed to tie the game at that point to kind of keep the momentum going, and they didn't. And that game had some real significance to the league later because it really became the play that instituted and really pushed for instant replay because it was an egregious miss. It's a clear
Hmm.
catch, 2 feet in. It's a touchdown, obvious. They reel it incomplete. And, probably one of the more notorious, not the most notorious, because I'll get to that in a minute, but one of the most notorious missed calls in playoff history, I think. I'm not sure people remember
No, I mean, I know I remember it, and you're right.
it.
It
Sure.
probably is what the impetus for instant replay, like almost 2 decades later coming in. But yeah, it was an egregious error. It was almost kind of embarrassing as a Steelers fan. You sort of sat on your hands. You're happy, but you're like, going, oh, that's kind of ugly to do it. But I had the opportunity to talk to Craig Colquitt, who was a punter for the Steelers in the Super Bowl 13, Super Bowl 14 era, and that would have been his second season in the league. And he pointed out, he goes, yeah, because do you remember what the Steelers did on the next drive after that? So, like you said, there was plenty of time left, and the Steelers moved the ball on the Oilers again. I think we would have still had the same outcome. He goes, yeah, it was unfortunate Renfro didn't get the catch and, get the stat line in the playoff game and Pastorini get an extra touchdown. But he goes, we were pretty good that year too. So,
Yeah, given the Steelers' history, I think tie game late third quarter. If they would have called it a touchdown, still probably would have had to certainly lean their direction. But I know that I guess there's not many left anymore. But the Oilers fans, I know that was always something that really stuck with them and grinded them for many, many, many years.
yeah, that was the height of the Love Ya Blue teams.
Sure, great teams
Yeah,
because they played
yeah.
in the AFC Championship game the year before as well, where the Steelers destroyed them.
Yeah, well, so that was
Yeah,
it was battle. That AFC Central was a battle. The Browns were good, the Bengals were good, the Steelers were good, and the Oilers were
yeah,
good. And
yep.
it was a bloodbath every game.
Yep. All right. So now we're gonna go even farther back for number
All right.
two, and what is probably the most controversial call that nobody remembers in the history of the playoffs. We're gonna talk about 1976, the Patriots Raiders divisional playoff game. Now, started off with this. The Raiders. That's the year the Raiders did win the Super Bowl. The 1976. That's the Madden year. But there is a massively controversial call at the end of this game it's very important. The 4 point lead is important. So the Patriots have a 4 point lead. It's 21-17 with less than 2 minutes left. Like it's down to this is the final drive for the Raiders, and it is 3rd and 18, and they are not field goal range doesn't matter because they're not going to kick a field goal down four, of course. And Stabler goes back to pass. He throws it down the sideline. There's nobody really there. It's incomplete. So it's going to be 4th and 18. Yellow flag. Roughing the passer. And this is 1976, right? So this is not when roughing the passer calls were nearly as prevalent as they are now. It was Ray Hamilton, who was the defensive tackle, I believe, that was called for the penalty. And if you go back and watch it, it is iffy by today's standards. And by 1976 standards, I'd say it's an absolute no call. First of all, he's not late in any way. It's not a late hit. There is maybe a little bit of hand to the head area contact, a little bit, but there's no face mask grab. There's no clubbing. There's nothing egregious about it at all. It would be about as nitpicky as it gets, even today, and then was sort of unheard of. But think about how massive that is because if they don't call it, it's 4th and 18 now, right? So the Raiders have to go for it. Odds aren't great that you're going to get it down by 4. Patriots are going to win that game. And the Raiders are not going to win the Super Bowl. And so that, I think, and I don't think that that's something that people are really particularly aware of. And that is, I'm sure Patriot fans are. But that is, I think, a worthy number 2 on my list.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I am a little bit familiar with it because currently I was one of the writers. The PFRA is putting together a 76 Raiders book, which should be out, I think, end of 2026, maybe 2027. I'm not sure what the publisher has. And I got to be a part of that and I wrote the chapter on Fred Biletnikoff. He's from Erie, where I'm from. So I got to do that. So I got a little bit, and I was not a Raiders fan. Raiders and the Cowboys were the enemy for me being
Sure.
a 70s Steelers fan. And, but Fred Biletnikoff, but I got to relive some of those moments of the Raiders and doing
Very
that.
colorful team, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, they had a bunch of good players on that team too.
So, number one, drum roll. I didn't go back very far at all on this one. This one is super weird to me because I barely remember it, and it wasn't very long ago. But when you look at the details, it's shocking. So I'm going to the 2018 AFC Championship game, Jaguars and Patriots at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. Of course, we all know that the Patriots win the game. I don't think people realize that the Jags had a 10-point lead with 8 minutes to go in that game. And, Blake Bortles was having a really nice day. And the Patriots score a touchdown to Amendola, a pass to Amendola with about 8:30 left in the fourth quarter to get within 3. And then they don't score again until under 3 minutes. So the Jags have the lead in the AFC Championship game in Foxborough, approaching the 2-minute warning. Another Amendola touchdown, Brady kind of doing his thing. They take the lead. But what I kind of didn't remember at all, was Bortles got the ball and they come right back down and cross midfield again. And so the AFC Championship is like hanging in the balance. They get near field goal range, but then I believe there's a penalty or a sack that pushes them out. They can't kick the field goal, and it winds up 4th and long, and they don't convert. Patriots kneel it out. It's over. But that was a game. If you go back and look, it is hanging. It is right there for Jacksonville. I'd say a team that nobody remembers. Maybe even Jags fans don't remember the 2018 Jags very well. I mean, because that is and so to think that in this great run for Brady, that was really in a way one of their more improbable wins that I don't think anybody ever mentions ever.
They had so many like that were, turned around at the last minute, including Super Bowls that they won. They were sort of a team of destiny. I think they got more good breaks than anybody I think I've ever seen for one team, with Brady at quarterbacking and Belichick at the helm. Seems like, man, they always got a good break on something in a big game. But yeah, that is definitely one of them. Yeah, great job.
It was strange to have the Jags on this list. That was strange to me, but I don't think anybody really remembers that, how close they were. I'm sure Blake Bortles remembers it, but I don't know if anybody else really does. So.
That was sort of maybe the pin that popped his balloon of having a great NFL career, because before that he was a hot commodity.
He really was. He went downhill fast, but if you go back and look at his numbers and his performance in that game on a really big stage, he was really, really good. Really good. And then, maybe that, like you said, maybe that broke him. I don't know. But that is my list.
Well, Ed, that list is excellent. First of all, I love the criteria you put out there. You didn't want the popular, the things that the media always picks up on for every time you have a playoff game. Those any two teams meet, they have something famous they talk about. So they're so obscure, but they're things that you remember, and you got me on a bunch of them, having the aha moments like, oh yeah, I remember that. I'm sure the listeners are too. So folks, if you do remember some of those, hit us up in the comment section on YouTube, or you can email us at pigskindispatch@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that those get shared with Ed, because this is fun stuff, and we really appreciate you joining us today, Ed.
Yeah, you bet. I want people to let me know the ones I forgot and see if they were on my cut list or not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that would be fun to do too. Yeah. And maybe we'll even have a follow-up show. Yeah, thank you. We'll do this again.
Thanks, Darren.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff, for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.